I thought I was just spending a quiet weekend with my nephew. I never imagined one honest conversation would help me find myself again. My name is Claire. I never thought one quiet afternoon would change how my nephew looked at me forever. Not because of something big, but because of one small moment. A moment that opened both of our hearts. It all started on a rainy Saturday. My sister had to leave town for a work meeting. She called me early that morning. Claire, can Ethan stay with you for the weekend? Of course, I said. I would love that. Ethan was 19, kind, respectful, funny. I had watched him grow up. To me, he was still the little boy who loved toy trains. When he arrived, he looked taller than I remembered. He smiled. Hi, Aunt Claire. I smiled back. Come in, I made pancakes. His eyes lit up. You still remember my favorite? Some things never change. He laughed. For a while, everything felt normal. We ate breakfast, talked about college, watched old family videos, then something unexpected happened. While looking through an old photo album, Ethan stopped turning the pages. He stared at one picture. It showed me years ago, before my divorce. I was smiling in a blue summer dress. You looked really happy here, he said quietly. I looked at the picture, then I smiled a little. I was, but life changes. He looked at me again, not with pity, with understanding. That surprised me. Most people only asked about my divorce. No one asked how I really felt. But Ethan didn't ask questions. He simply stayed beside me. Sometimes silence says more than words. Late that afternoon, we decided to clean my backyard. The fence needed painting, leaves covered the grass. It was harder than I expected. Halfway through, I sat down on the porch. I think I'm getting too old for this, I joked. Ethan smiled. No, Aunt Claire. You are just trying to do everything alone. His words caught me off guard because he was right. Since my divorce, I had stopped asking anyone for help. I thought being strong meant carrying every burden myself. Maybe I had been wrong. Without saying another word, Ethan picked up the heavy paint bucket. I've got this. I watched him quietly. Something inside me softened, but not because he helped me, but because someone finally noticed. I was tired. That evening, we ordered pizza. The rain became heavier. The lights suddenly went out. The whole house turned dark. Oh, great. I laughed. Perfect timing. Ethan turned on the flashlight from his phone. We'll be okay. We sat near the living room window, listening to the rain, talking about life, dreams, mistakes, second chances. Then Ethan asked something I never expected. Aunt Claire, were you lonely after the divorce? I looked outside. The answer stayed in my heart for a long moment. Finally, I whispered, more than I ever admitted. Ethan didn't interrupt, he simply listened, and somehow that made the silence feel safe. I had no idea the next thing he would tell me would completely change how I saw our family and would make me realize that sometimes the people who know us best see our hidden pain long before we do. The rain kept falling outside. The power was still out. The room felt quiet. Only the sound of storm filled the silence. Ethan looked at me. He took a slow breath. Aunt Claire, there is something I've wanted to tell you. I smiled. What is it? He looked down for a moment. When mom and dad talked about a divorce, I always felt bad. I looked at him. They thought I couldn't hear, but I heard everything. My heart became heavy. I never wanted you to hear those talks. I know, he said, but I did. He paused again, and I hated seeing you smile in front of everyone, then cry when you thought nobody was watching. I felt my eyes fill with tears. You saw that? He nodded. One night I came downstairs for water. You were sitting alone in the kitchen. You didn't know I was there. You looked so lost. I covered my face for a second. I thought I had hidden it. You tried, but you didn't have to. His words touched my heart. For so long, I believed I had fooled everyone. I thought I had hidden my pain, but someone had noticed, not to judge me, just to care. Ethan smiled gently. You have always been there for me when I failed my driving test. You told me one mistake doesn't decide my future. When I was nervous before college, you stayed on the phone with me for hours. I never forgot that. I laughed softly through my tears. I don't even remember saying those things. I do. He answered, every single one. His kindness reminded me that love inside a family isn't often quiet. It doesn't always come with big speeches, sometimes it comes through small memories. A few minutes later, the light came back on. We both blinked. The room suddenly felt brighter. So, I said with a smile, looks like we survived the great blackout. Ethan laughed. Barely. We cleaned up the pizza boxes. Then he noticed an old guitar in the corner. You still play? I shook my head. Not anymore. Why? I stopped after the divorce. I didn't feel like singing. He picked up the guitar carefully. You should play again. I think part of you is still waiting. His words stayed with me. That night before going to bed, I opened the guitar case for the first time in years. I gently touched the strings. A soft note filled the room. It wasn't perfect, but it felt alive. Standing in the hallway, Ethan smiled without saying a word. At that moment, I realized he wasn't trying to fix my life. He was simply reminding me that the woman I used to be was still there. I just needed the courage to find her again. Little did I know the next morning, one unexpected visitor at my front door would test everything I had just started to believe. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in years, I felt a little lighter. I made coffee. The smell filled the kitchen. Ethan walked in, still half asleep. Morning, Aunt Claire. Morning. Did you really play the guitar last night? I smiled, only for a minute. He grinned. That's a good start. His words made me laugh. Maybe he was right. Maybe every new beginning starts with one small step. Just the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. My heart skipped a beat. It was my ex husband, Daniel. He looked older, much tired than I remembered. Hi, Claire. His voice was quiet. I was nearby. I thought I would stop in. For a second, I didn't know what to say. Then Ethan appeared behind me. He politely nodded. Good morning. Daniel smiled. You must be Ethan. Ethan shook his hand. Nice to meet you. There was no anger, no awkward moments, just simple respect. I invited Daniel inside. We sat in the living room. The silence felt different this time, not painful, just honest. Daniel looked around. You've changed the house. I needed a fresh start, I replied. He nodded slowly. I understand. For a while, we talked about normal things work, family life. Then he looked at me. I owe you an apology. I stayed quiet. I wasn't the husband you deserved. I thought working harder would solve everything, but I forgot to take care of us. His words were sincere. Years ago, I had dreamed of hearing them. Now, they didn't hurt, they simply helped me let go. I smiled gently. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. He looked relieved. I wasn't asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know I noted. I know. For a few minutes later, Daniel stood up to leave, but before walking out, he smiled. You look happier today. I thought about that. Was I happier? Maybe, or maybe I was finally healing. After he left, Ethan looked at me. You handled that really well. I laughed softly. I wasn't sure I could. You did. And you didn't let the past pull you back. His words meant a lot. That afternoon, we went for a walk in the neighborhood park. The trees moved gently in the summer breeze. Families were laughing, children were playing. Everything felt peaceful. We sat on a bench. Ethan looked across the lake. You know what I saw yesterday? What? I saw someone who always takes care of everyone else, but almost never take care of herself. I smiled. I guess you're right. He looked at me with a warm smile. I've always admired you, Aunt Claire, not because you are perfect, but because you never stopped loving people. His words stayed with me. In that moment, I realized he no longer saw me only as his aunt. He saw me as a strong woman, someone who had survived heartbreak and was finally learning to smile again. What I didn't know was that before the weekend ended, Ethan had one last surprise waiting for me, and it would become one of the happiest memories of my life. Sunday morning arrived. The sun was shining. The rain was gone. Fresh air filled the house. I stood in the kitchen making breakfast. For the first time in a long while, I found myself humming a song. The same song I had played on my guitar the night before. Ethan walked in with a smile. You are singing again? I laughed. I didn't even notice. I did, and it sounds nice. His words made me smile even more. After breakfast, Ethan looked at his phone. I need you to get ready. I raised an eyebrow. For what? It's a surprise. I laughed. You sound very confident. Trust me. 20 minutes later, we got into his car. He drove across town. I kept guessing where we were going. A movie? No. A restaurant? No. A shopping mall? He smiled. Just wait. A few minutes later, he parked in front of the community center. I looked at him. Why are we here? Come with me. We walked inside. The sound of music filled the hallway. People were setting up chairs. Some were tuning guitars. Others were practicing with microphones. What is this? I asked. Ethan smiled proudly. It's an open music afternoon. You said you stopped playing. I thought maybe today could be the day you start again. I looked at him in surprise. You planned this? He nodded. For weeks. I wanted you to remember the person you used to be. Tears filled my eyes. You really did all this for me? You have spent your whole life helping our family. I wanted to give something back. I hugged him tightly. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. A volunteer walked over with a warm smile. We have one more spot if you'd like to perform. I looked at Ethan. He nodded. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be yourself. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking, but something inside me felt ready. I walked onto the small stage. The room became quiet. I picked up the guitar. The first few notes were slow. Then my confidence grew. I sang an old song that had always given me hope. When I finished, the room filled